Hello and welcome to the Outcast, the Not How to Challenge Again podcast. I'm your host HC, and with me for the first time on the Outcast, it's Wolf.
Hello.
Ironically enough, the person who had the idea for this spin-off podcast has his first appearance in the podcast 6 episodes in, but it's good to have you here, finally.
Better late than never.
And today
What an episode to start off with too, though.
Yeah, I wanted to do this one for quite a while. As soon as I finished season 2, we'll get to our history of the show in a bit, just so everyone could see where we're. But it's kind of late, but better late than ever, I guess. And we are here to pretty much keep the ongoing debate and talk about this show, because if you couldn't tell by the picture over here, we're going to talk about certain reasons why. And before we start talking about the show, I think we should just clarify that I'm not sure about you, Wolf, but I personally haven't read the book the show is based on.
I have not either.
From what I heard, it's pretty similar to the first season, but maybe they changed some the tape order for some characters. But other than that, I've heard it's the exact same thing.
Yeah, so it's pretty much just, I think the book is just season 1 is essentially the book, more or less. I think the book goes over some things in more detail and does some things a little bit differently. But again, I don't know a ton about it, like you said.
So again, we are talking about this not having read the books. All we know is that apparently the first season follows the book pretty much to a T, with a few minor changes. That's what we know. If anyone wants to fix us regarding this, you can do so. And I think it's also we don't really need to give any heads up about this, because it's just audio. We're not going to show clips or anything in this. If you just want to listen to two people talk about the show and not have seen clips that may frighten you or disturb you, no need to worry. All you're going to see is this picture here. And you can also just go to another thumbnail and listen to us talk while you do something else.
Yeah. Just keep in mind, it is 13 Reasons Why. It is about suicide. It is about a lot of other stuff that, these kids go through and deal with in the show. And if that's something you want to hear two people talk about, keep listening. If not, completely understand.
I think that's also something we should get out of the way, that we are by no means experts about this kind of stuff. We're not experts about depression or suicide or how this represents stuff well or not. We are talking based on experiences and what we think, either from our personal lives or just personal knowledge we know, or from the show. We are not trying to say that that our thoughts about the subjects are factual or anything. But I will say that if you are having a problem of this caliber, we are not trying to discuss this here. I feel sorry for you. I'm sure you can get past this, but we are not the address to tell you what to do. There are professionals for that. We are not professionals at all.
No.
Although Wolf has surprised me before.
Don't do that. No, not a professional. Do not come for me to help. I'm definitely not the person qualified or probably even able to give it. The only thing I can tell you is find someone you trust. Find someone you trust who's willing to listen to you and just talk. That's the only thing I can remotely give in any qualifiable statement.
Yeah, and also the I think right now, at least, both the first episodes of both the first and second seasons of the show open up with the actors encouraging people with depression and everyone to go and talk to someone about this. This is very important. But before we get about the show itself, Wolf, how long have you been aware of the show, and what got you to watch it? Aside from me wanting to do this and with someone, because this is not the type of show I can just talk about alone.
If I'm being honest, this is looking at the show. I think it's while it definitely has some like very specific subject matter that it goes into. I think it still kind of qualifies as a little bit of one of those teen drama shows. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, this section and that connects to my story, so yeah, I'll agree with it.
So, if I'm being honest, these aren't the type of shows I get into. I don't tend to watch them at all, hardly. I've never found one of them completely interesting to me. So, with that said, I mostly did this to help you do the Outcast, but I can't say that, I hated my time with the show.
Okay. What is this, lie detector?
No. That would be really bad. No, that was phone alarm. Forgot to turn off.
Okay. But anyway, my experience with this is that I haven't really heard of the book, and I haven't, like Netflix, I think I'm not sure if it was something that just started. No, it's not. It's been because Race to the Edge was out by this point.
Mm-hmm.
But
Netflix is this really cool company that's only been around for like a year now. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Because now what I want to say is that at least until the show came out, Netflix wasn't one of those things that, it was a bit. I don't want to say unknown, but this is the show that pretty much, because before this, everyone was just like, yeah, I know Netflix is like a site and there are shows on it that you can stream. That at least where I live, let's keep it like this. And Netflix wasn't even official here when this show came out, but and then when this show started, though, everyone were like, "Whoa, Netflix!" and started talking about this show. And like the thing, I haven't watched it as soon as it premiered. I watched it a few months later, once my school year was over, my college year, I should say. But the thing that interesting, because as opposed to you, Wolf, I love all these all of these kind of shows and this is like my niche genre, I guess you could say. That I don't know. There's something that I really like about how shows like this try to portray high school in different ways. And like, don't get me wrong, some shows like this completely fall flat on their faces.
Yeah.
But even the ones that like in terms of high school show and movies, even ones that people claim are objectively bad, I can still enjoy them. Not all of them. I draw the line at Twilight, for just to clarify. And there are a lot of other shows like this I don't like, but I don't know. So hearing about this show, so one, the teen drama thing, it speaks to me personally. If for some reason that's a genre that gets me for whatever reason. So that was an interesting thing, part one. And part two, not a lot of shows on this caliber really like maybe depression with the whole bullying thing and stuff, but no one actually went to the trouble of talking about suicide and what bullying can do to a person. Because in teen dramas, it's usually, oh, you have the bully, and then the hero manages to outsmart the bully or beat the bully in some way, and that's all she wrote. But here, you can kind of get. I found this interesting that this is a universe where the bully won, and and the main character lost pretty much, and and I thought it was a very interesting thing to actually sit down and watch how this is going to play out. And so I gave it its so I gave it its shot, and the rest is history. We'll talk about it more, yeah, as we go along.
Fair enough.
So with that said, okay, so let's just before we actually start talking about this, what are your quick non-spoilery thoughts about season 1 and season 2? Like, what are your non-spoilery thoughts on the show in general? Having watched all of it.
Tony is adorable. Probably my favorite character.
Hmm.
I think everyone could agree with that. Like, regardless of what you think of the show, if you've seen it, I think everyone can agree Tony's the best. End
Yeah,
of.
Tony's the best. Like good, he's great. Okay, that's my bad joke for the episode. Thank you, everybody.
Good to know. Otherwise, I think overall, like I liked, and this is really, I think overall, like the best part for me was like the first half, I guess you'd say, or so, or no, I think like the majority of season two is probably my favorite. Season
Oh,
one, not all of season two, but a good bit of season two was probably where I think I enjoyed the show more. And season
okay.
one, I don't think I enjoyed as much. And we'll kind of get into more of why as we go over it a bit more. But
Yeah, that's interesting for you to say because from what I've heard, most of the general consensus is that season one is great and season two is a bit lacking.
I
So
don't know.
that's interesting.
I've seen some
And
consensus where it says season two did better than season one in some areas, right? In others, they dropped the
okay,
ball a bit, maybe. But again, we'll kind of get into more detail as to why I think so, and as to why I liked
okay.
season two,
I'm
some of season two a bit more than
yeah.
season one.
I No, I'm interested. You got me interested to listen to this, but I'll just say that season one I think is very good.
Yeah, I
Like,
didn't hate season one by any means.
yeah, but I'll say season one is very good. Season two has a lot of good ideas and a lot of good moments,
Mm-hmm.
but some may, I guess I can say, technically, it has a few problems that bring it down.
Yeah, the ending of season two, to name one.
Well, let's talk about that one. Get to that one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, but so now that we're going to talk about spoilers here, so first of all, spoilers. If you haven't seen the show for whatever reason and you are planning to, this is your chance to close the video and come watched everything. But so to those who are here right now, we are entering spoiler territory. And the way we're going to do this, we're going to talk about season one first, and then season two. Now, if you came here because you listened to our Berkcast reviews about Race to the Edge, then this is not going to be like this. Race to the Edge it's a very episodic show. There is an overarching plot to a season, but most of the time each episode can stand on its own. Here, all episodes are kind of connected to one another, so we're just going to talk about each season as if it were its own movie.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, season one. So the one thing I will start off with is that, again, like I said, this is a sort of a unique twist on the teen drama genre because again I don't recall any, like, there are a few that where characters do commit suicide, but it's not the main driving force. Like, the plot doesn't revolve around this is usually, the climax that one of the characters just couldn't take it anymore and took his or her life away. So I do like the fact that the story here is about a girl who did end her life because of bullying, and and people say that it kind of romanticizes suicide because she left those tapes, and she pretty much wants people to listen to her talk about them making her you know about what she expects people to listen to her talk on why she killed themselves, and the reasons are them.
Specifically,
Which,
she wants the people who are on the tapes to listen to the tapes, not anyone
yeah,
who isn't on the tapes. And I can kind of
yeah,
see that point of view because I do get where they're coming from because generally very generalized from knowledge here. You're not going to find a lot of people who commit suicide making something like this. It's not something that you kind of premeditate on for a long time, right? It's
Yeah.
something that
Like
you
there
just
are
do.
the people have notes, but you're not a suicide note. It doesn't really require that much effort, I guess you could say,
Careful.
because
I don't know. Mm.
like
I get what you mean, though.
like you're
I get
but
what you're trying to get at.
just to explain myself, sitting down in front of a computer or a paper and writing why, it's not as complex as actually go to a store, buy tapes, record on each tape, and then um, write down everything you want to say, record it, and then send it to Tony because he's the one passing the tapes along and
It's
everything.
a very
You know what I
complicated
mean?
and yeah, it's a very complicated and well thought out plan that would take a lot of effort, and that's not something a lot of people who who commit suicide tend to do.
Yeah, but this is one of those things that, and the show does this a lot. You'll probably hear me mention this a lot in this, that there are a lot of times when you are kind of like that when you start, it starts to fall apart. But at the same time, you kind of need to just go with it in order to enjoy it. I'll get You know what? Let's, because I said we're not
I can
going
agree.
to do this episode by episode. Let's talk about this. The basic mystery, quote unquote, that we get throughout this season is why is Clay on the tapes?
Mm-hmm.
This is the main. This was at least mine, and also before season 2 came out, I rewatched the season, and I managed to drag my mom into this. And her driving force to watch the season was the same as mine. Why is Clay on the tapes? Because
What did
we
he
don't
do?
really get. Yeah, what did he do? Because every time we saw him with Hannah, it seems like they were hitting it off really well.
Other than him
So
being a complete and total oblivious, you know, doofus, sure,
yeah,
they hit it off most of the time.
uh, what I mean is that he didn't really do anything bad
he
to
made
her.
he made his mistakes, right? Like anyone else, he made his mistakes,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
of course he
in
made his
with his
mistakes.
friends,
He's
and
which
we get to see
again,
that.
yeah. But when we see him with Hannah, they don't seem like it doesn't seem like she suffered around him.
No,
So it does. So throughout the entire thing, like when you hear what Justin did to her, and Jessica, and Tyler, and Zach, so and Bryce is after Clay, so doesn't really count. Um, but you hear all of this terrible stuff, and also, and Clay is kind of the thing that because they also kind of build it up, because when you think about it, each episode ends when the tape ends, pretty much, and
mm-hmm.
uh, the only tape that kind of gets like a tease at the end of the previous episode, like that, when, and that at the end of the episodes they talk about which tape is the next one. That's Clay. Like his tape is it kind of gets it gets hype, and eventually for her to just say Clay doesn't really belong on the list, but she just needed to mention him in order to, you know, in order to get to tell the full story. She needed to mention him, and then people have brought up the idea that if that's the case, why not just let him out on tape 1 so that he won't eat himself out emotionally.
Say again, though.
If the reason she put tapes was because she just needed a full she had to mention him in order to tell her full story, but at the end of the day he didn't really do anything,
Yeah,
then why did she wait all the way until tape 11 to mention him and not just let him go after tape 1? Because until he got to his tape, this kid was going through a lot of shit.
this is true, And again, I think that's where you kind of come into the, well, this was done for the mystery and to keep the audience engaged as well. Because after that point, if you do that beforehand, what reason does the audience have to really stay? So this was to really
Yeah,
stay, other than
and by
to
the time
listen to continue listening to the tapes themselves. And do you care
yeah, and
that
by the
much?
time
So it's done
yeah,
as
and
the
by the time
hook,
you reach and by the time you reach
as you said.
Clay's tape, which is tape 11, you are probably like, okay, I've finished 11, I might as well go for the other two.
Yeah, since you've
I,
already gone that far in. For, if I'm not mistaken, most of these episodes are almost 45 to 50 minutes long. So yeah,
yeah, something around in these lines.
when you've watched 11
But
45 to 50-minute episodes and only have two of those set episodes left, might as well
yeah, so
just dig in.
yep, might as well finish it all. But that's the main thing, though. That so people mention it, and that it's kind of said that the only response I can give here is that the only reason this exists is because in terms of the show and the mystery, in order to make the show somewhat worth watching, they had to do it like this. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the actual, if you're thinking in universe, there's no real reason why. Like, I guess you could say Hannah just forgot about Clay until tape 11, and she just said, "Oh, wait a minute." But then you see that she kind of had this list, like this piece of paper with all the names in it, and she did write Clay's name in there. So it's not like she forgot about him until she recorded that specific tape.
I don't think I would say she forgot. Like you hear in the first season, right? Like them talk about a lot about, especially in the second season, her story, right? They say this a lot in the second season. They say this a bit in the first season, where this is Hannah's, side of the story. And you hear many characters say that while accusing her of lying and many other
She
things.
says this. She says this herself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think again, when on Clay's tape, she tells them, "I needed to mention you to tell my story."
Yeah, and I think if you want to look at it as if an in-universe thing, she left him to this point because at that point, that's the key part that he played, and having him come sooner would it would mix up the story, because she would have to tell that bit of the story first and then move on to the rest of it. And it wouldn't make sense in a quote unquote storytelling perspective, right? From Hannah's perspective in universe, I guess you would say. So she left him to
Yeah,
that
but
point to really sell and really point out what comes afterwards and what Clay meant and what he did, for her, and like what he did for her life just by being around, essentially, and being someone who was, for the most part, I mean, we're in spoilers, so for him being someone who was, for the most part, like a good and decent friend,
Mhm.
who tried and wanted to be more than a friend, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, yeah. I do have to say that if we can get parts that we really like of the season, then in that same episode, he kinda after he finds out that him living here in Jessica's room pretty much led to the entire thing, that she saw Jessica getting raped, and then the entire thing with Sherry dropping the stop sign and everything. So in that scene, it kind of leads to a flashback scene where he tells her, I that he loves her and everything, and then she tells him, "Why didn't you tell me this when I was alive?" That broke me. Like, not cry necessarily, but it was like an ouch. That was a big ouch.
Agreed. Not much else I
Yeah,
can say to it. We are jumping around a little bit
actually,
here.
yeah. Well, like we said, it's like a movie, but
Mm.
before
We should kind of
I just
go
want to
over a
say though
little
that
bit of what happened
uh,
before this, though.
yeah, before this though, I just a random trivia, I guess, to those who are interested. In acting class I had to take this year, I needed to reenact the scene with between Clay and Tony after when they are on the cliff after Clay finds out why he's on the tapes. That was interesting. And of course, the teacher won't give Tony. No, not the easy part. I have to be Clay. Thanks, teacher.
In reference, this is what HC is talking about for those of you who haven't watched the show. And the episode where Clay hears about his part, he himself contemplates committing suicide as they're standing on a cliff, and Tony has to talk him down. Because, he blames himself that much for Hannah's death.
Which, on the one hand, I can understand, but on the other hand, not so much, because, I get where he's coming from, and I would probably feel the same amount of guilt, but saying I killed Hannah specifically, that's a bit of an exaggeration. But, that's what he feels because he's very upset at this point. I get it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can understand it, too. You keep saying we shouldn't do this episode by episode, but I don't know if jumping around is going too well.
Yeah, but we can go back to the beginning.
All right.
Okay, I will ask you this though before we. So let's talk about the other characters. I do like how for every person that's on the tapes. They're not just a person who's on the tapes. We get to see how each one of them is as a character itself, just in line to Jessica about Bryce not raping her and that Hannah lied, or Jessica wanting to bury this entire thing in the past.
Her believing the lie, right? And I guess a part of her wanted to believe it, and plus she was drunk at the time as well, so it was easier for her to believe, people who were alive and what they told her than it was for her to believe, a girl who was dead who had no way of telling, this is what happened, right? Mm-hmm. Because, again, admitting something like that happened to you, I no experience, right? But I can imagine that it is an extremely hard thing to do. So I can understand and see the setup for that and why it happened the way it happened. I don't agree with everyone else. You have, 11, I think, about, you have quite a few different people, quite a few different kids who are more than willing and happy to say, oh, she's lying, this isn't true. We're just going to stand up for this dude who's pretty terrible, and most of us know are pretty terrible.
Yeah, but you do need to keep in mind that the only one that really knows about what Bryce did to Jessica is Justin himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a friend, it's a person who's dead world as opposed to a person that's alive. And, when a person, I'm not saying anything about people who sadly took their lives. I'm not saying that they are all liars, not at all. As someone who knew a lot of people who sadly took their lives, I won't get into specific here. But in the hands of these kids, the way these kids see it, when when Hannah committed suicide, then she could and left those tapes. She could pretty much just say whatever she wanted. No one can really talk to her about this. No one can really get the facts out of her. She's dead. You can't really criticize her for that. So, do you trust someone who can't really explain themselves, or you trust someone who can? I think that's the mindset these kids are operating on. And Justin said at the beginning, no, he did, and Bryce didn't rape Jessica. Hannah's a liar, so they believe him because they can get Hannah's side. And I don't think anyone would if she did say it and was still alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I don't disagree, right? Going, I guess, a little bit further back, there is one character who we see throughout the first season who actually isn't on any of the tapes, and I did say that from the beginning that I enjoyed his character a lot and that I did like him, and that is Tony.
That's Tony. Yeah, I like Tony's.
I like the
Um,
fact that, yeah, I think it was, and he's not the only character that we see in this show who isn't on the tapes, right? But
yeah,
from the from the purpose that he serves in the show, they could have very easily made him a very small minor side character and not really done a lot with him, but they actually did go out of the
because
way to make
yeah,
him
because
a very important character, and they did a lot with his backstory and stuff like that, and I enjoyed that a
yeah,
lot.
because at the end of the again, like I usually say, when you take away all the layers, mentor slash best friend
Mm-hmm.
character. But it's not really a cliche in any sense. He's not the cliche best friend, and he's not the cliche mentor in a sense, because when he tells Clay why he carries on the tapes, why he can wish, you feel sad for the guy. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you, if I saw the thing he saw, I would carry this with my life as well.
Mm-hmm. And what talking about season one, one of the things that I really liked about season one, I really enjoyed when we see Tony and Clay. They Tony takes Clay out, rock climbing,
Yeah.
and
Again,
that was.
that's what I talk after the rock. That's the scene I talk about. Why he cares so much
Mm-hmm.
about carrying on Hannah's wish.
Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed the rock climbing scene because that was one of the few times that we got to really see Clay and Tony's back and forth. And these two characters and two actors have a great, in my opinion, really great back and forth.
Oh
And so it
yeah,
was really enjoyable to see.
like I think unhelpful Yoda is one of the things that made me love the most in this show.
That was good. I like that one too.
And also, some consider this show. I love the fact that even though that because usually when in kind of these teen dramas, whenever there's a gay character, unless it's the main character, they usually just refer to it as what's their personality? Oh, they're gay. And in this case, Tony may be gay, but it's not his personality. And I like the fact that it's just something we need to accept about him. That's something
Mm-hmm.
about him, and they don't really make a fuss about it. So thank you.
And I love that somehow Clay was just oblivious to that as well.
Yeah, that's also pretty funny. When when you really you couldn't tell how long friends.
Mm-hmm. But and I do think the mystery behind Tony, right? Like why he carries the tapes and what his connection to the Bakers themselves are as well. I think that's also a smaller side reason people might keep watching as well.
Yeah, actually, that's. Did you think Tony will be on one of the tapes at one point?
No, no. From the way everyone talked, I kind of assumed, okay, so he's probably not going to be on the tape. Well, he even said earlier on that he's not on the tapes, if I'm not mistaken. Did he not?
Yeah, yeah. There is not on the tapes, right? Hmm. But anyway, so we all love Tony. No, there's not really much to talk about this. But in terms of the people who are on the tapes, though, I will say I like Jessica. I like
Yeah.
Jessica and fine because when she and Hannah hanging out in the second episode like and later on they also get Alex to join them and they have a fun chemistry. Like I like seeing them hanging out, and I felt sad that they had to break this off. It was kind of heartbreaking. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex himself I like, but I, I don't know because it seems like they try to play the poor kid card again with him, and in some sense they played that card with Clay anyway throughout the duration of the show. So we don't really need another poor kid. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Justin is I I not really much to say about that in the first season. I just think uh, he he's fine. I didn't hate him. That's one thing. Tyler on the other hand, yeah, no, I hate Tyler.
Tyler,
The guy who takes the pictures.
oh yeah. I, we'll get to probably a lot more of him in season 2, but
Yeah, because he has a bigger part in it. But
again,
either
right?
way,
Like, dude who takes pictures gets way more shit than dude who and it's also like everyone's more than happy to believe that he did what he did on these tapes, but she's lying about everything else. But this one thing she's not lying about, right? But everything else, oh, she's obviously lying about everything else. But this one thing, no, this is absolutely true. We can all buy this. We can all believe this. So let's give this kid a lot of shit. Like, I'm not defending what he did, right? Like, what he did was wrong, inherently wrong. Don't do that. And that's, taking pictures of someone and stalking them, essentially. Don't do that.
yeah,
It's not the way you get on someone's good side. And then also releasing said photos after you promised said person you wouldn't release said photos of them. Just because you got caught and you wanted to get, back at them and be spiteful. But, it's still kind of...
like this. Even if I don't like all of these kids who are on the tapes, most of them can be somewhat redeemable, which is kind of what
Well, even
it's kind of
Tyler
what
can be redeemable. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, granted, again, not defending what he did, right? Because people might accuse me of that. Not defending what he did, not saying he's a good person, but that doesn't mean he can't be redeemable. Like, there's a far cry from what he did to comparing it to what Bryce did.
Well, but Bryce is kind of the big one. Bryce is like top tier, cannot be redeemable no matter what you tell me. And we'll get to it in season 2 because the show kind of tried to do that. But
I mean,
putting Bryce aside, I think Taylor may. There's probably someone else coming up later, but Taylor is the first one I signed. I'm like, okay, no, I don't like this kid at all.
But I mean, seeing him before we got to his tape, I didn't mind him. He was kind of just the nerdy kid who everyone picked on. Like, yeah, okay, all these shows have that. I mean, they tried to pass off Clay as kind of that as well, but yeah, he's nerdy.
Well, but then again, Clay's a kind of straight man. Yeah, like he's the guy. People know he's not the most popular guy, but he's not the nerdiest guy either.
Not the most popular guy. There. He seems to know almost everyone in the school, just about. Like a lot of the cheerleaders know him, a lot of the jocks know him, and they don't. Yeah, but they pick on him, but they don't pick on him. Like
that's what. He's not popular because he does get marked a bit. He's not, but he's not a nerd because he knows a lot of people there, and some people are friendly with him outside of the school walls, and unless he brings up the tapes. He's there. He's there because he needs to be, and that's pretty much it. He gets along. That's the best way I can put it.
Mm-hmm.
He gets by.
But I mean, what I was going to say, right, comparing Tyler to Bryce a little bit, what I was going to say is, in the back of my mind, watching the show, again, I had to question, like, why do you believe her on this, but not everything else? Like, why is everything else a lie, but this one thing isn't? Like, it's kind of like... I think I couldn't agree with it, personally. It's just something that caught me a little bit.
Yeah, okay. I will say that when you really think about it, when you get into the group that listen to the tapes, Courtney is one of them because she is the tape after Tyler, and Courtney is in Courtney. Oh my God, that's a mispronunciation of a name, but Courtney was in that picture Tyler took, so that's a problem. Not a problem, but she suffered through the same thing. There you go.
This is true, and this is true, right? And I can understand, from that perspective, but it's still kind of like again, she of all people, and she of all people knew Hannah was telling the truth about that. So why would she think everything else was a lie, right? Like she had to question it to some degree. Like it couldn't all be a lie because I know for a fact this was true. And if this was true, why not everything else?
Yeah, because the so
Like from her
one the
perspective, I have like, and I guess this probably rolls right into, I wasn't a big fan of her character. In season 2 they did, I think, bring her back a little bit, and I started but I started to like her just a bit, but but at the end of the day I still just dislike her character. I still just dislike her. Like, not to be like,
okay.
sorry to be really mean about that, for not belittling what she went through, but at the same time it's like she probably had the most reason to believe Hannah because she knows that Hannah was telling the truth about this one thing, so why would she be lying about everything else? So I have to, and and like she was also the one who backstabbed Hannah as well, and made again, like her big thing was that Courtney's big thing, right, was that she was gay, that she was a lesbian, and that she didn't want
Yeah.
to admit that to herself or to anyone else because both of her fathers were also gay. She was
Yeah.
in a family with two fathers, right? So, but she didn't want to admit that to herself or to them, and that was one of her big things, right?
Hmm.
And so what she did to Hannah, like her reason and the reason she's on the tapes, was that she basically deflected attention away from herself and made it all look like Hannah was even that much more of a slut, which was the big thing
Yeah.
about the first tape, right? Is that Hannah was quote unquote a slut. She's not, she
Yeah.
wasn't,
Just
but
just
that
in
was the rumor that got spread around. And
yeah.
going back to that, right? Like I think that's actually something the first season does really well, is setting up those high school rumors about people, and how just one thing, right? One lie can absolutely
Yeah.
ruin a person.
Can get in cut in the fire and just spread.
And like, it's, I think they do that really well here. I think they set that up really well, and I think it's shown really well in this how it can just absolutely ruin you. Especially from,
Mhm.
I guess, the from a girl's point of view and from a female point of view within high school and stuff like that. That shit can be rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't envy
I
you.
can agree. Yeah. That's you know gone away a bit from the actual kids on the tapes. I do want to because I think at around this episode, like the Zach and Courtney episodes, Zach, Tyler and Courtney episodes, this is also the point where we start getting to know Hannah's parents a bit more and how they
Mm-hmm.
are handling with the fact that their daughter committed suicide. And at this point, like again, I watched this season again with my mother while preparing for the second one, and she told me that seeing this as a parent apparently gives you a whole new perspective on the matter,
Mm-hmm.
and like she really enjoyed seeing this show from the perspective of an adult, of a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And like she even considers it like that every parent to a teenager needs to see this show. And so if I can give them the writers any credit, so I think they handled Hannah's parents really well.
That's interesting to hear, right? Because neither of us are parents.
Yeah.
I don't think, anyways.
Well, well,
Unless
Rush
there's
is
something.
getting close. Congratulations, buddy.
Mm-hmm. But
Um,
as far as we know, though, none of the rest of us are parents. So
yeah.
looking at,
Like
but
the two of us know,
uh-uh.
but
I
yeah.
do
So
agree with her. I
say,
liked how they set up Hannah's parents. I even liked how they set up Clay's parents too, right? But yeah, Hannah's parents and how they kind of handled that, and how they both had very different ways of grieving, and how one wanted to find the truth and one wanted to, I, I, I guess in a way, kind of like try and make things better, but also kind of just get back for Hannah, right? Like Like her mother wanted to sue the school because she blamed the school
Yeah.
for not trying to do more with bullying and stuff like that. And the school defended itself, obviously, by saying, oh, we do plenty with that. We never let our kids bully one another, things of that nature. And clearly, we see many instances of, yeah, that's not true at all. And on top of that, right, like the lawsuit's going on, and you have one of the, I don't know, I think she was like the vice principal, I think at the time, like two kids, like one of our main characters, I think, crap, Alex gets in a fight with.
Yeah. I think Bryce.
No,
If I
it's not
remember the
Bryce.
score.
No, it's
It's
season
not
one.
Bryce. No.
It's not. Bryce was in the car with the dude who was driving, but it was,
Oh
I
yeah.
forget his
Oh
name
yeah,
though.
yeah, right. Yeah, I know. Seen you.
What is his
I just
name?
forgot the guy's. I don't remember the guy's name. Not
Let's
sure.
see if I can't find it real quick.
But that's something I did like this season in terms of in terms of like of conflict. I like the fact that
Montgomery.
the lawyer okay, that's his name.
But
I
go
do like
ahead.
how the lawyer that the school gets to face the Baker's lawsuit is Clay's mom.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Well,
that I found it to be interesting. That,
the first season. Oh, go ahead.
I just found it interesting.
Well,
They got the mother of the kid who loved Hannah the most. In terms of
Yeah, we should say, right, like it's given off the idea that she's going to be the lawyer for the school against the Bakers, but eventually, as the first season goes on and Clay finally, tells his mom everything that's been going on, because, and that's another thing, right? Like, again, I said I liked the back and forth between Clay's parents as well, and like Clay's dad was also a really enjoyable character. I feel like I really enjoyed him and kind of what he, and kind of how he talked with Clay and everything. It was like really great and really enjoyable. And I think it's season 1, right, where like him and Clay are, if I'm not mistaken, it's season 1 where him and Clay, it might be season 2 actually that I'm thinking about, where him and Clay are sitting in the park talking. Is that season 1 or season 2? I think that's season 2, is it not?
Most likely 2. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think that's 2. So ignore that. We'll get to that in a minute. But I enjoyed that part though, essentially. But we'll probably get to more of that in detail. But what I was going to say earlier, right? Like I enjoyed seeing kind of, I guess you'd say, the politics of the school, kind of where.
Yeah. Again, this is the point that pissed me off when they actually shows that takes pictures and show people the type of things that people write on school walls. That that's so true. That's so true. And then seeing I'm not saying that this is what principals do, but going into that and like trying to say clean it up and saying there's nothing here, that pissed me off so much.
But it makes a lot of sense though too.
It makes sense, yeah, but it still doesn't make it the right decision.
Oh no, but I mean it's not supposed to, right? Like you're supposed to not see him, and he's not necessarily a bad person though either, but you're not supposed to agree with the decisions he's making. But at the same time, like the school can't lose that lawsuit because they don't they need the money to continue operating and stuff like that, and having to pay out for a lawsuit would cost them a lot and could probably cost teachers their jobs and stuff of that nature, right?
But at the same time, I don't want my kids to go to this school. I don't want the school to keep operating if that's the way he does it.
No, I don't blame you either. Like he's more concerned with keeping the school keeping the school afloat and making a profit with the school than he is concerned with these kids' lives and what they might be going through, right? And you can even see this when Porter starts to be more involved in stuff of that nature. He's like, yeah, don't do that. Run it by me first before you do anything else. It's like, yeah, you're kind of an asshole,
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Again, like, and it wasn't even him that decided the fight. Like, again, I was going to mention the fight between Alex and Montgomery. it wasn't
Mhm.
even him that made this decision. It was, I think she was the vice principal. I'm not quite sure, but she's like, did the fight happen on school grounds? And Porter tells her, well, no, it was right outside the school. She's like, well, we're not responsible, not us. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to punish them. We're good.
Yeah, that's
It's
actually
like,
something that
wow.
yeah, my school, you're saying what? My schools though really like this. Like as soon as you walk out of the gate,
Oh yeah, my
like
school. When I
like
went to school,
as
it was
soon
the same way.
yeah, as soon as like you're walk like there was a so I don't exactly remember this, but like that my elementary school and the junior high school were like um a road apart from each other.
Hmm. Like, yeah, mine were very much the same way. Like, elementary school was probably a little bit more, I guess you'd say, protective, right? Like, even if you were off school grounds, like,
Yeah,
they
but
still cared. But
but the point what I'm trying to make is that one guy from the elementary school, one guy from junior high, got in each other's faces, started beating each other up, and both schools, from what I've told, were like, eh, like not school grounds, not our problem.
yeah, I
Let
mean,
the parents
yeah,
look at this.
and I would say most schools are like that too. And but again, like, I bring it up because I think it's something good that the show does. Like, it shows the politics, I guess you would say, and how, you know, people tend to view stuff like that from a very certain perspective, especially when outside influences are, directing them in a certain way, right? Like, they don't care as much about this, they don't care about as much about the students, personal lives and what they might be dealing with and going through, as much as they probably should, maybe. And then again, maybe some people would disagree with that and say it's good that they don't care, right? It's not their place to. It's more so the parents. And that is an interesting, and that is something, I think that's interesting, that I think both seasons kind of tried to do something with. It's like, how much should a school care about their students' lives, and how much should they be involved and responsible for taking care of them, and how much should they step back and say, no, this is the parents' job, not ours.
Yeah, which I
It's
have
not
to
a very
say
deep
is
conversation from the show. It's not something the show really, I think, answers in its own way, but it does kind of bring it up, right?
well, I think well, sadly, I think it's that you know that it's not really the things that trying to show us is that there is no answer. Sadly, that
Mm-hmm.
no one really takes the glove off, if you know.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it's very much up to the individual to decide, whether or not that's a good thing from the show or a bad thing, right?
Mhm. Going back to the kids
Mm-hmm.
for a second, I didn't really like. I think it's Marcus
Mm-hmm.
who gets her for the from. He's an asshole.
Yeah, Marcus is, season 2, I think, does a little bit more with him, but even then, I still dislike him.
Hmm. Like you know, the entire thing in Faye as well, trying to he basically harassed her. No, this guy is not to me. Like because this is one of the things I did try and look at it. You know, if any of those kids can be redeemed, he's like Tyler for to some extent. He's a no, and again, Bryce is the what is like the there's no that's not even a question. He's he's not redeemable at all. But Marcus, like I Simon, like no, fuck him. Zach, I kind of like
Yeah, I think I enjoyed
in the
Zach,
first
especially,
season.
like, in the first season. He was very much kind of, he was a little bit more background. There wasn't a ton to him, right? But I still, like, his character wasn't terrible. He seemed like he, you know, did care at least a little bit and wanted to do kind of the right thing. He just wasn't sure how or what way to go about
Yeah,
doing it,
that yeah,
right?
I think, and that's something that kind of comes to something Hannah says that in the tapes he pretty much thinks she says that I'm going to play mind games with you like you played with me, and it's not necessarily that he tried to play mind games. I think he didn't really know what to do, you know.
Mm-hmm. and
Uh,
and again, like, that's where you come back to this is Hannah's side of the story from season one, right? Like, this is Hannah's side of the story, and that's what she saw it as. And then I love how, I don't know if it's in the same episode as Zach's tape is, but you go on to see Zach show Clay, right, that he still kept the note. He never got
yeah, he's
rid of
still.
it.
I think it's on tape because I think that's the same tape where Clay destroys his not destroys but vandalizes his car.
Keys his car,
And
his really nice car, just goes up and keys it. Like, oof, dude.
yeah, I do like his house.
How,
He's
what,
just
you,
this like the most
hold on,
nonchalant.
HC.
I did it.
HC.
What? Yeah.
Repeat that because you went silent there for a minute.
Oh, I said that when Zack and Clay's house demanded an explanation to why Clay did this, and Clay's mother is all defensive of him, and Clay's just this nonchalant. I did it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There was something I liked about it regarding Clay's character, that even that the people were, even when the guy hurt his aunt to him and brought his mother into it, he's just this. Yeah, I did it. So
Mm-hmm.
like,
Actually, that brings up a good point, and this is something else I would. I don't know if your mom might have mentioned this to you, but I would love to hear other parents on this who might have watched it.
yeah,
The idea that, like, the show goes into a lot where, like, many of the parents, like, you'll see this very, my kid would never do that. My kid would never act that way. My kid would never be a part of something like that. You always hear that throughout the show, and I kind of enjoyed that because it very much shows, like, parents can blind themselves to their kids and how they're acting
yeah.
sometimes.
Zach's mother is a perfect example for
Mm-hmm.
this, actually.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, like, did your mom happen to say anything about that, or?
Um, from knowing my mom and several
That's
from
always a
several
good
sides,
start.
yeah, but I think it depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if a mother can, if like a different guy's mom came to our house and like pointed a finger at me saying that I vandalized the car, then yeah, she would say my kid never did it, because I don't want to praise myself or anything, but like I don't have a business vandalizing someone's car, like unless that someone did something horrible to me. That is, like like if I were in Clay's shoes, for example, I'm not sure if I would have done that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if it comes to the idea of like a girl committed suicide and I'm apparently mentioned in tapes or something, she would like sit me down and ask me, okay, why are you on those tapes? Why, like, she won't necessarily say my kid won't do this, but at the same time, she will support me if I say I did it.
Fair enough. I think most parents would be the same. But again, like, pointing out, that's just something I enjoyed seeing. Like, you did have the parents in there who wanted to talk with their kids, but their kids wouldn't talk with them. And then you had the parents in there who just, like, like Zach's mom, where she was very much, we don't need to talk. I know you're a good
Mhm.
kid. I have no doubts in my mind. I don't need to talk with you. I don't need to hear anything from you because I just know. It's like,
Yeah.
that in of itself is still like, and they do portray this as well, especially in season 2, and we'll get there eventually. I promise. I won't. I'll stop mentioning it and offhandedly and actually talk about it. But
So
what I was going to say though
going
is
going on
I didn't
going
finish.
on with the. Oh, okay. Sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say real quick that, like, it's, saying, not talking and just assuming as a parent that your kid is good and you don't need to talk with them because they're good. Like, I love the fact that the show portrays that as kind of a bad thing itself in a way, right? Like, it's still not helpful to the kid. I enjoyed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. True.
Moving on.
Moving on. Ryan is another that I don't necessarily can get behind because he publishes something that's even though in his mind he did the right thing and a good thing for her, for Hannah. This is just a no. I can tell you. I can tell you as someone who friends shared with him a lot of personal stuff and let read a lot of poems, which is the most personal you can get. I I would never do this like at all because that's privacy. That's privacy 101. And sometimes even when there was a one time that my friend published something as on the school site and I want to share it on Facebook because she did good on it and I want people to see it and she did ask me to take it down for now, so I took the post down. This because she didn't want this out at this point, and understandable. Not just because you wrote something that's good and is considered part of your talents doesn't mean you necessarily have to push it around everywhere. And Ryan publishing this and that's another thing against the school. Why would a teacher read this in front of the class when she knows that one of the students wrote it?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And this is
so
something. Oh, go ahead. I'm interrupting you now.
I just said that. No, I'm just saying that this is one of these episodes I liked because this is one where both criticisms I could say, yeah, I totally agree with this. I totally agree with this, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
And this was something the show addressed too, right? Like, why would the teacher read this? Why would you read this out in class and knowing that one of your students possibly wrote it and not do more, right? And and like we don't get a ton of background information on a lot of the teachers, but this one and the one teacher who reads this out, I don't remember her name if I'm honest. Like she's not like a major character. She's a very minor character, but like she is questioned for her part in reading out this particular poem and like not trying to do more, right? And even she kind of berates herself a little bit, like I could have done more, right? Like I could have done something, but I didn't. Is that bad on me? Like she does question like did I make a mistake? Like and I do congratulate the show for addressing that. Like they addressed it in season 2, but even in season 1, like they do kind of address the idea that like did I make a mistake? That she kind of it's kind of gone over a bit, like I screwed up a little bit. Like she does kind of admit that in a way, and I did enjoy seeing that. But as for Ryan as a character, I didn't hate him, but I agreed. Like
it's not that I hate him. Did.
Yeah, you hate what he did, is what you said?
Yeah. And I don't hate him, I hate what he's done.
And I can agree, right? Like, what he did was pretty, like, jerkish, but I think Ryan was set up from the beginning to be kind of a bit of a jerk, very kind of, he very much cares only about himself, more or less. But as far as, like, a lot of the kids who are on the tape specifically, like, Ryan's the one who we don't really get a lot from. Even in season 2, like, we still don't really get a lot of information about him and who he is and kind of what he's been through. We get some, but compared to everyone else, he's very much more background.
Yeah. So the next tape is again. So and then we have Sherry. And this is like, if I can say, Sherry is a character I really liked. Again, I'm so pissed that the only reason because I did really actually like her and Clay having a thing with each other, and it is kind of sad that that thing ended because she's on the tapes for something that really anyone could have made that mistake. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm not justifying.
Oh no, I get what you're saying, right? Like it's the same thing from me earlier, right? Like I wasn't trying to justify what some of the other kids did, But the big thing for Sherry is you have to remember what she did really did hit Clay in a major way because, you know, what she did was she hit a stop sign and they didn't call it in. So that stop sign was
Yeah.
down. So no
Yeah.
one knew it was there. And that led
Yeah. I
to
know.
Clay's.
Yeah. It led to Jeff dying, which
Mhm.
again, I understand why he's mad at her. I'm not saying this is that she's 100% guiltless. She has something to be guilty of, but it is said that it had to end because of because of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
like,
Because I
Sherry's.
actually like that together.
Yeah, like, I think, Sherry was a good character and I enjoyed her a lot. And I don't think, compared to what some of these people did, I think hers is very, is somewhat more minimal. Like, she made a mistake, so you shouldn't hate her for that. But again, like, you
Yeah.
have to remember, like, the reason Clay gets so upset with her is he blamed, the guy who died in the car crash was Jeff. He blamed Jeff for his own death. Like, he blamed Jeff. Like, he was
Yeah.
mad and upset with Jeff. He disliked
Hmm.
Jeff for his own death. And, whether that's
Hmm.
fair or not, the reason he did so is because he was certain that Jeff died because he was driving while drunk. And he even asked Jeff, like, yo,
Yes.
are you going to drive while drunk? And Jeff said, no, I'm not drunk, man. I was sober. Like, and Clay
Yeah.
believed him. Clay's like, all right, I believe
That's
you.
actually one of my favorite scenes on it is that when Clay goes to Jeff's parents and tells them and that he always hated Jeff because he thought he lied to him and that he was drunk, but now he found out that wasn't the case. That was a very powerful scene.
I agree. Like, that one was really good, and that was one of the things that I really liked about season one was him going, and admitting that he blamed him for his death, that he disliked him, that he hated him for it, that he was mad at him. I guess I shouldn't say hated, but that he was definitely mad at him for his death. Like, that's, in a way, it's unfair, and he kind of knows it's unfair. But when he finds out that he may not have died while driving drunk, that he may have died because that stop sign was down, that really hits him personally hard, and that was enjoyable to see. And I guess, speaking back to
I won't say I'm not I won't say enjoyable,
what,
but
yeah,
good.
yeah, I don't mean enjoyable
Like
like
it
I
was a
had
good
fun
scene.
seeing this, right? Like, that's not how I mean the word enjoyable there. Like, it was good
Yeah.
to see. Like, it was really impactful, I guess you would say. And I should say,
Yes.
talking to all of the actors, like, all of these actors do really well in the roles that they're
Hmm.
given. Like, I can't, again,
Yeah,
not my
definitely.
type of show, but I can say, even though this isn't my type of show that I generally tend to watch, I can say all of these actors did really good in their roles.
Yeah, that's actually because Hannah's actress is actually in a new movie called Love Simon, and everyone in the trailers for this were like, Hannah Baker is in this movie. No one because that's how this actress is going to be remembered now. And
Possibly, she
for
may have been
someone who
typecast, unfortunately, for
yeah,
her.
for an actress who, from the research I've done, haven't really done anything before 13 Reasons Why. Like this was a big role.
Hmm.
So for her to sell a character like that to the point that people start referring to her as Hannah Baker, that's impressive.
Agreed.
Anyway, about tape, I will say we pretty much said everything we have to say on it. I
Hmm.
think so. We can move on. We
Should
can
we?
move on to the.
We kind of we didn't like really talk about him a lot, but should we talk about Justin a little bit and kind of what we thought about him, or should we just
Um,
save it for season two where he gets a lot more character
uh,
development?
I'll say this. I didn't hate him. Like at the beginning, I kind of did because he's the first tape, and you can see what he did, and I would be pretty hurt if like a girl did this to me myself because and everything. But at the same time, the more because this is kind of opposite from the rest of the characters because with a lot of other characters we get to know them before we get to listen to their tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And with Justin is kind of the opposite. We learn it, we hear his tape before we get to know him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you get to know him, you actually see his background, and his mother is a mess. The mother's boyfriend is a jerk. You can see from what kind of education he comes from, and
Well,
then
not
when
education,
he's
but
not
background. You mean?
background, yeah, okay, mm, fair point, but fair point. So you see his background, and whenever he's at Bryce's house, and as we can see later, Bryce is not the best insider. So I'll just say, I did find this interesting that he's not just a plain bad guy. He's just kind of a victim of the circumstances.
Yeah, it is like I was gonna, if you wanted to talk about it, to bring it up, yeah, like at first they definitely show him off as like, okay, he's a jerk, he's kind of a douchey jock, but you end up getting to this point where, like, you see that the background he comes from, where yeah, he does come from a very unstable home, and like his mom's very much a drug addict, and the mom's boyfriend sells drugs and is also like very abusive and it very much threatens to kill Justin multiple times.
Yeah,
No, it's like that's why and I can see why he's so loyal to Bryce, because Bryce stood up for him. Bryce, gave him some kind of stability. Like he looked out for him. He was very much so a really good friend for a long time. And so
yeah,
you can look at that and you can see, okay, this dude's loyalty, even if I don't agree with it, I can understand it, right? Like I can understand wanting to protect someone who did all of this for you, and knowing that if you go against him, like you're gonna lose everything that was pretty much keeping your life stable, essentially. Like you lose all of that. Like that's definitely, like, I can understand the position he's in, and I can see it, and I can feel for him a little bit. Even if I don't agree with him, I can kind of see where he's coming from and see the position he's in and feel for him. And I think that's something the show did really well.
yeah, agreed. Um, okay, so moving to Bryce.
Finally, what did
Okay,
Bryce do?
he's probably the biggest motherfucker in this show's universe. Let's start with this. But
Why
okay,
does
but
HC
I
hate
do want to say,
Bryce? Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't watched the
okay,
show,
before we get to Bryce, okay, before we get to think about him, if you've seen the show, you know what I think this about him. But before we get to Bryce, let's talk about something, because I've seen this criticism brought up a lot about the first season specifically. Okay, I've seen this brought up a lot season, and that's that Hannah is portrayed as, for a lack of a better term, as a Mary Sue. If you've listened to the last Berkcast, you know why I mentioned it like this. But the point I want to make is that she's portrayed as a victim and nothing else. Like you
she's
can see
portrayed
that she
as
can be a
she's perfect and that she did nothing wrong, that she's never done anything wrong in her life. Like she's the perfect teenager.
yeah.
And
Yeah, she does. She is a bit. She is playful, and she can be a bit sneaky and everything. But the point is that for the most part, people said that they portrayed her as the perfect girl, and in some senses, I can get why people see this and why the show creators did this as well, because she is the character that committed suicide, and you need to feel sorry for her. But then we get to this episode, where the worst thing that can happen to a teenage girl happens to her, and I kind of talked about this, and my mother also brought this up when she watched the episode. Sadly, as much as what she went through is terrible, and I don't wish it upon any girl, even a girl I hate, she kind of brought this on herself. And in a sense, she kind of agrees to it when she says she has no idea why, when she walked by Bryce's party, she decided to go there and hang there, and saying what why doesn't really excuse the fact that she did. And if she just have walked away from this tape would never have this entire thing would never have happened. So when people say that Hannah's portrayed as a perfect girl, I'll say this episode kind of goes against that point, but at the same time, it's just the one episode. And I am sorry to say that she's guilty on it because Bryce fucking raped her, and that's terrible, and this guy deserves to die. I'm glad that this is a laugh, Wolf, because this is not a laughing matter.
Okay, don't portray it that way. I'm just laughing at the reaction a little bit, and I don't disagree with it before anyone says anything. Okay. And I guess it's it's funny that the show managed to elicit such a reaction, a strong reaction, and maybe that's not a bad thing essentially, potentially. But I personally, looking at season 1 and looking at how people say she's represented as the perfect teenage girl, I would still agree. I don't think the show does enough to show any other side of Hannah other than she's good and that she makes really, really terrible. She has really, really terrible decision making, essentially, really bad decision making. She should never be allowed to make decisions. She has such bad decision making sometimes. At least as far as the show portrays her. But she's never portrayed as a teenager who gets angry, who lashes out. We never see that side of her, right? We do eventually, but that's in season 2. In season 1, we never see any of that. And I think, and I don't necessarily think we need to in season 1. I don't think that's the point of season 1. I think, again, season 1 is Hannah's story. Right? And it's something she mentions at the beginning of season 1. This is something we hear a ton of in season 2. This is Hannah's story, and from her perspective, maybe she is, and if you look at it, as season 1 is entirely, all the past events anyways are from her perspective, then, and, you have Clay listening to these tapes, and you have, Clay very much having this one particular viewpoint of Hannah and no other. I can see why she's portrayed the way she is, because this isn't necessarily our viewpoint. This isn't necessarily outsiders' viewpoints. This is Hannah's viewpoint and, to a lesser extent, Clay's viewpoint. So I can kind of see why she's set up the way she's set up. If that made any sense.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I know I agree with what you're saying, but I'm just said that when people say that in the first season we don't get anything saying that she has flaws, I'll argue that, ironically enough, this episode where the worst thing that could happen to her happens to her, for all intents and purposes, she could have avoided it, but.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I think she does have. I think the show does go out of their way to show that. Again, like I said, she makes really terrible decisions. She's very terrible at making decisions.
I think they also kind of have, because we didn't mention this character a lot at all actually, but we'll probably get to her more in the second season. But we have Sky, the girl who works at the cafes they go to, and she shows Clay that she's cutting herself, and she does say something like, this is how we cope. Suicide is for the coward. So I also think that the show is trying to tell you that Hannah committing suicide was not the best idea in the world. There could be other ways that she could have handled this.
I think
that
I think everyone would agree with that, right? Suicide isn't the answer. I think, that's always what you're going to hear. Suicide isn't the answer.
And as someone who in middle school was bullied and considered suicide, I have to admit, I will agree this is never the answer.
It's a
But
bit
something, if he,
it's a bit rough to
but
call someone a coward for doing so. It's like, it's a little harsh, a little rough. But I get where
yeah,
she's personally, like, as a character, I get where she's coming from, you
yeah,
know.
mhm, yes, and also Sky is not. She's a fun character. Don't get me wrong, I like her as a character, but she's not supposed to be the quote unquote good character. Like she's supposed to be this. I think the stereotype, if you want to call it that, is like of the emo kid. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
I would
so
agree.
she's not nice necessarily. So she will use a term as insulting as coward, especially because she wants to get to. She's trying to push Clay's buttons.
Mm-hmm. At that point in time, yeah, when she says it. And, like, we definitely learn more about Sky in the second season. But as far as the first season is concerned,
Mm-hmm.
like, she's very much more of a background character, like quite a few others. But, like,
Yeah.
she definitely, even though she is very much, I think, playing a stereotype in season one, and to an extent in season two as well, it's still, like, one that I think they use effectively when they need to.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Okay, so one last thing I'll say about Bryce tape, because I always say what I think about Bryce. What I think about Bryce, everyone can pretty much, I hope, agree with me on
Terrible
why I
person.
think that way about Bryce. Yeah, terrible
Agreed.
person, and it's to die as soon as possible. But I did like Clay actually going up to him, and even though he knows he has no chance, he still goes to him. He gets the shit kicked out of him. But I did like that it was like that Bryce has the bronze but not the brains, because Clay did manage to get a confession out of him, which is
Mm.
and I did like
Well,
that. Clay might not be strong, and he may be emotionally unstable, but he has a brain, so I like that.
it's not so much. I don't think that he. It's not so much that he doesn't have the brains. That Bryce doesn't have the brains. It's more so that he's just so damn cocky and confident in himself that there's no way anything anyone can do to touch me. I'm
Yeah.
invincible. Essentially, that's what he thinks. And I guess that kind of goes back into how you'll hear a lot of people say that all teenagers think they're invincible and can't be touched or killed or anything like that. But it's very much true for Bryce. Like, he very much comes from a very well off and very rich family, and so he very much
Mm-hmm.
sees himself as untouchable and invincible in every and
Yes.
single aspect. And you know
Mm-hmm.
with feelings aside about the character, the actor I think does a great job for him. Again, like I said it
Yeah, because
before. Go ahead.
like because I think so. Like again, they put those messages from the actors before
Mm-hmm.
the first episode of each season. So you look at Bryce's actor in those messages, and you look at him in the show. It's like night and day to me.
I mean, yeah, I would agree. Like, you hate him. See, and like when you see him, like you hear that message, it's like, I have to remember you're not that person, but I still kind of hate how you look now because you're you look like that person.
Yeah, which
But again, like,
poor
that
kid,
speaks to
his
him.
fault. But
Like,
yeah,
he's
but it
probably going to
speaks to
be
him.
a little bit typecast now. But I
But
mean, it
that just goes to show how much of a great actor.
yeah, I would agree.
The
Like, he
people who
does.
dress him, and the dressing and the makeup as well. Like,
He did, like, the
so
show
yeah,
did really well with getting these actors, and they do a really great job.
yeah. So talking about to say,
Do what? No, hold on.
one difference,
You faded out there again. Do what? Did you talking about what now?
the final episode.
Okay, so all right.
The final is about Mr. Porter,
Mm-hmm.
the school. I think the
The
counselor.
school counselor, yeah.
And yeah, and the one thing I've heard that is a difference between the book and the show is that in the show he has actually has a first name. In the book, apparently he doesn't, which which kind of makes me think that that his first name is actually Mister, but
first name Mister, last name Porter. So
yeah.
Mr. Porter.
Yeah. Anyway, but
I
I
liked his
don't have
character.
much. Yeah, I like his character as well. But one thing I do want to say about this episode is that even though you know this is going to happen because this entire show focuses on a life without Hannah Baker after she killed herself, the scene where her mother comes sees her body in the tub, that's still a powerful scene. Even though you know it's going to happen, you know what's happening afterwards. That scene did get me.
The scene where Hannah goes in to talk to Mr. Porter. Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
no. I said the scene where Hannah's mother comes home and sees Hannah in the tub.
Oh yes, you're talking about the very end where we see, and that's a thing that I think the show's gotten some criticism for as well. Like it doesn't just we don't just see Hannah laying in the tub like we actually get to see the full scene of her committing suicide.
Yeah, and to be honest, the one part I watched this episode twice. The first time and the time with my mother to refresh my memory, and yeah, both times I couldn't look at it. This is you know I can see heads flying off people and then being kicked around like a soccer ball. But
yeah.
seeing something, I can see something over the top like this and not be so terrified with the blood amount. But something about seeing this really.
I guess because it's more personal, right? Like it feels more personal. Like it just feels
because,
much closer
again,
to this is something you could do to yourself so easily.
Yeah, and also I think it's also they they let this play because they want you to feel the process of this, and it gets to me. I have a pretty weak heart. I can see these kind of things again. I can see something imaginary, like Kratos from God of War, ripping the guy's arms out and then slapping them with their own arms, and then like taking the legs and kicking them out of the way. But seeing something like this, because I know it's ridiculous, and no one could ever do that in real life. But when I see something like this, it's like, ooh.
Well, they could, but again, it just feels so over the top that you don't feel the same kind of from it. You see this, and even the rape scene with Bryce, like you see that and you feel because again, it feels very much more believable and more personal. It feels more grounded, I guess you would say, and that's it gives way off more of that feeling of and there's been some.
Probably.
I think there was definitely some criticisms where the show didn't need to show this, but it did, and I guess it's very much up to the person you're listening to. I don't think the show's wrong in showing it, but I don't know if it necessarily needed to show it in such a vivid way.
Yeah, but though, you really think about this. And when you really think about this, if they had to show Hannah committing suicide, then do you think there's a certain reason they chose this way? Because at the same time they could have just went with a simple hanging. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It will still have that shock effect, but at the same time, it won't be so.
It wouldn't be slow.
It will be.
And
yeah,
that's the slow. Point. They want that they really this scene it feels slow. The scene itself does. Like everything about it feels very slow. And I think that's the point. Is to really hold on this scene and to really drive home that uncomfortable feeling you get from it. Whether that's the right choice or the wrong choice, I think is going to be up to who you talk to. But it definitely works for what it does, though.
I think that's the best way you summarize this show. It depends on who you are, because there are people who can listen to this entire thing and say, I don't agree with everything they say at all. This is one of those shows that's really hard to get right because, it's a very sensitive topic.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that for an ending, and considering the fact that they didn't know they're going to make a second season because they pretty much got the entire book done and over with by the final episode, from what I know. Then I will say it is a good ending in a sense, because even though you kind of need to, uh, even though you kind of need to complete some points in your head, like price and what would Mr. Potter do with these tapes now that Clay is given him
I want to.
given them to him.
You finish your
It
point.
does,
I just
and
want to talk about Mr. Porter a little bit after you get done.
I just want for how it ended. Ended, they did leave for a second season, but at the same time, I did think it ended well. Like
You faded out again a little
just
bit. Repeat that.
I think the season ended despite some open loose ends.
I'm going to assume because you're still fading out a little bit that you said you think the season ended well.
Yes.
Okay. Agreed. I think the first season ending was really good, and I think it ended very well. So I would agree. Yeah. Compared to the second season, which again we'll get to, I think the first ended really well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Mr. Porter, real quick, like I really enjoyed seeing like at the end of the season like him and Clay's conversation. I think that was also really good, and then seeing Mr. Porter, I think we get to see him in the first season, like seeing him listen to the tapes and like how it hit him. Like I think that was a really good moment as well. And I think
Mm-hmm.
just them showing like him and Hannah's talk and him, you know, trying to be a good counselor for her, but also at the same time, very much like trying to be a school counselor and knowing that that job is somewhat thankless, I guess you would say, and not exactly an easy
Yeah.
one. Like, I'm not a school counselor, so I can't say for any certainty, but like, yeah, his reason for being on the tapes is that Hannah went to him to talk with him about, how she was feeling, that she was feeling suicidal, and the fact that she was raped. Like she did talk about that, but she never named Bryce, and she wanted to,
Yeah.
and she didn't know if she could name him, and she didn't know if she wanted to name him. And
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Porter just flat out tells her, if you can't tell me his name, then I can't
I
really
can't do
help
much.
you. There's nothing I can do for you. And it's very much shown from her perspective. It's shown like, why not? You could have tried to do more, but he didn't really know what to do, I guess you'd say. He didn't know, or he just wasn't. I guess shouldn't say he didn't know what to do. He should have known what to do. And the show does kind of portray this a little bit later, that he should have known what to do a little bit and everything in season 2. But we see this from her perspective of, he didn't help her, and that's why he's tape 13. That's why he's on the tapes, is that he didn't help her, and she wanted him to help her. She wanted him to come after her. And we see
Mm-hmm.
Clay tell him this, and it hits him hard, I think. And you really see
Yeah.
this, and I think again that was just really good to see.
Mm. Because again, you need basically Clay telling me is pretty much a thing that you didn't do your job, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
worst criticism you can get, especially in this case.
Mm-hmm. Hello, are you still here?
Yeah. I'm waiting. Just,
You've been
okay,
breaking in. You've been
so
going in and out a lot, so I didn't know if you just completely went out that
uh,
time.
I'm like when I'll go,
You went out again on that, so I have
but
no idea what you said.
you'll know when I go. That's it. Okay, you know what? Hold on a second. Let me try something. Hold on. Maybe if I'll move. Okay. Testing. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you still sound good.
Okay. So I'll try and which means I'm a bit far off from my computer, which means oh well, we
I
probably
think
won't need so
you
much
sound a bit
episode by
echoey.
episode.
You sound a bit echoey now, but other than that, a little bit
Yeah,
better.
because I okay, I
Although
had to.
you're still going in and out.
What the hell? Like,
it's
man,
it's not your distance to the mic. It's that your connection is just dropping every now and again, so your voice will just
yeah. So
disappear.
I'm trying to be closer. Okay, uh, testing. Is it okay now?
We'll find out if you drop again.
Okay. Um, basically two. I guess I'll just say because I kind of waited for season two. Like Wolf binged both seasons. I
Mm-hmm.
waited for it, but the one thing I was curious about at the one point curious, and that one and the other fearful is that the book ended where the first season ended. So there was basically nothing to do, and the show is called 30 Degrees. What now? Did she make another bunch of? Did she make a 13 secret tapes now or something? It sounds ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really sure. Thing that did kind of that made me a bit more optimistic that the author of the book was actually a part in writing this season.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could say it. So you could watch this as a sequel to both the book and the first season. So that was interesting. And then the season came out. It was. This is not me breaking. This is me doing weird noises because I don't really have a concrete thought about it. But there are some stuff I like about it, some stuff I don't.
Um, the first thing I'll say season two did well is that season one we don't see like, and I think this is where you have a lot of people have issues with 13 Reasons Why, right? At least the first season is, in a way, I think I don't know. I never saw any trailers for this, and I never saw how it kind of advertised itself. But I think from what I've
Kind of
heard
like
and what I've seen, it
yeah.
seemed to me like it tried to advertise itself as one, a mature show that's going to go over these more heavy topics, but two, it seemed like it was. Again, I can't say for certain, right? But it from what I've seen people and how they've talked about the first season, it seemed like they expected the show to kind of have answers as to how you should deal with this stuff, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. And a lot of people were upset because of that fact. Like the first season really doesn't show you good ways to deal with depression and suicide and how to,
Yeah,
get over that.
and
And I think the second
I will get
season goes at least takes some steps to fix that problem a little bit.
yeah. That's one thing too that they actually listened to problems people had with the first season and said, you know what, let's actually touch upon it. Like people say that Hannah is too perfect. Okay, so this season did give her more flaws and told us she's not perfect by any
Mm-hmm.
means. Like one of the surprises for me was that in the previous school she went to, she was a bully herself,
Mm-hmm.
which which was interesting.
Yeah, we find
And
that out during the trial. The school's lawyer
mhm,
brings in a girl that she bullied in her old school.
mhm. So that's one. Two, there's also the thing people said about the first season that it romanticizes suicide, and they do kind of go out of their way to say that no, suicide is not a good thing. Like you can also come from the first season, but they do try and explain it a lot more here than in the first one. I think at least, and like you said, again, it doesn't necessarily give you the end all be all solution to suicide and depression because honestly, there is no end all be all solution for this. Sadly, it's But again, I am appreciative of them actually trying to fix problems people had in the first season.
Agreed.
Now, but however, now comes another part. I think this season overstays its welcome in a lot of ways because
To
I
a
know that
degree,
the show
I can agree.
I I know that the show is called, but seeing how the reasons are over, we know all of them, and there's kind of a reason 14 now because there's a tape 14 of Clay recording Bryce and didn't other girls. So
Mm-hmm.
so I get that again do this. Each episode is a reason thing, but did we really need 13 this time? Like some episodes, I was like, okay, why do we need to see this guy testify? Why do I need to see this? Why I need to see that? And some stuff they do with the character is good. Like I liked what they did with Zach here, that he and Hannah actually tried having a relationship. That was, I think, it was one of the best subplots of the show. And there's also a small bit with Courtney I liked, where she admits that she kissed Hannah first, and Hannah kind of and Hannah did like kissed her back just to make her feel better and
Mm-hmm.
about it. So there are some good stuff in here, and I also Tony trying to repress his anger in a relationship with his coach and everything, and you know Clay trying to, because that's a bit
Oh,
of a mess.
you broke. You faded
Uh,
out really bad right there. Repeat that last one.
I'll get to Clay in a second,
Okay.
but Justin, like him trying to redeem himself in front of Jessica, and I like Jessica trying to live now with the fact that she's been raped, and how she's does she let it out in the trial? Does she not? And Alex as well has memory after his own suicide attempt. Tyler actually finding friends. I did like a lot of these subplots, but then we get to the main plot, which is Clay and Hannah again, and this is where the season starts to fall apart, if you ask me,
Yeah,
because
I would agree.
uh, one thing, the one thing, Hannah being like Clay's mind and showing up in all these places and talking to him and stuff. It you know what it there's exactly one moment in the entire season where I thought it was kind of where I actually liked it, and it's that after Sky, I think she cuts herself after, to the point she's been taken to the hospital, and then Hannah shows up and tells them, "Man, you have a thing for messed up girls, right?" And he yells at her. I thought that was pretty funny. I, I don't know why. I thought it was a pretty funny moment. And now that Sky's in the house, the way Hannah criticizes him in his own mind, which is pretty much him criticizing himself. But then they actually start having these deep psychological talks with one another, and it's like, how how much can you really be psychological when you're imagining a dead girl?
Yeah,
It
it's
it felt odd for the
there.
show.
There are moments where they handle it well. I think another moment where they handle like Clay hallucinating Hannah and her like not being a ghost but just in his mind. Like they
When
like
when he goes
Clay.
to when he goes to house, and he hears see her walking behind him, and he hears the words of tape. That was cool as well.
Hmm. And like I think like Clay's explanation is like the way he convinces himself that she's a ghost, right? Like she's not just in his head, but she's a ghost and she's actually there. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting and it's a good way for him to like convince himself that she is there, that she's not just in his head. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the show doesn't handle it very well overall. Like I think it kind of drops the ball a bit because You
Yeah.
as the audience, I think you're supposed to recognize that no, this is all in his head. She's not actually there. This is him talking to himself, essentially. And you do see
Yes.
this later on, like they show when Clay goes once again to confront Bryce because he thinks Bryce is going to get away with everything. He goes once again to confront him, but this time he goes there because he has a gun and he's going to shoot him, essentially. And
Mhm.
we'll get to how he got the gun a little bit
Also,
later, but like I think you just hear Hannah constantly
one of,
repeating one phrase, and I think that and you like basically it's Clay having this mental breakdown, and Justin's kind of the one who saves him from making a really terrible choice. And Justin stands there and asks him like, "Who's there? Who are you talking about? What do you mean her?" I think that's another good moment for like him hallucinating Hannah and her like being like there but not there in his head. I think that's a good moment for it. But again, like that's all this particular thing was good moments from a mostly kind of poorly done thing. Like, it's poorly done. It's not like so poorly it ruins everything, but it's poorly done to where the point where yeah, this isn't very good. Maybe you should drop this. Like you've had a few good moments, but they're not selling it, you know? So I would agree like this is one of those
you
ideas that
know,
was
maybe if every episode, then maybe, but
it just doesn't come
the
across
one,
very well overall though. I agree.
yeah, and then Bryce does pretty much getting away with it. That annoyed me.
But I guess that's the show kind of trying to show something that's probably more true to life, that sometimes people like that do
Yeah,
get away with
sometimes,
it.
yeah, sadly.
But
But
talking about some of the good aspects of season 2, actually going back a little bit, what do you think the draw of season 2 was? For me, I think the draw of season 2, I think the reason most people kind of stick with watching it is, again, they play up another mystery, which I'm not sure was the best idea, and that mystery being who keeps sending Clay the different pictures. And the other,
yeah, and
there was
that's
two
another.
mysteries. The first mystery is who keeps sending Clay the different pictures. The second mystery is who
Why is Hannah
is
on one of the?
well, yeah, it's it's more of Hannah's backstory, but like who's messing with the kids, who's threatening them,
Yes,
and we find
and
out.
to be honest,
Go ahead.
I have to say kind of a story if you ask me compared to the first one because I can tell you right now I don't remember how plot thread even got resolved. I just remember it was resolved and that's it. I
Which one?
seriously don't
The pictures?
the entire thing with the picture. I don't like. I
The
know that I remember there's a club of
So the entire point of
the
the pictures
jocks
is
and
to
everything.
show that it's basically Zach giving Clay the pictures, and that's where I think Zach's
Yeah.
character really comes in really good, and we really learn. And like you said, like his relationship with Hannah and how they went out, I think all of that's done really well. And I think Zach really comes into his own as a character in the second season, and I really like him as a character. I think he really
Same.
moves forward a lot, and I think if anything, I think this is really Zach's season in a way, right? Like he really moves forward
Yeah,
as a lot of his character, and he does a lot as a character.
I agree.
And the like the big thing for the pictures is like we find out he's the one who gave Clay the pictures. When we find out there's a whole box filled with pictures, and that
Mhm.
many different girls have been abused or harassed or I'm not sure if raped, but probably in this so-called clubhouse by the I don't know if it's all of the different sports teams at this school, but at least the baseball team anyways. And that
Yeah.
apparently we even find out that the coach didn't know about the pictures, but he knew about this clubhouse and he knew about some of the things that went on there and let it happen. And that's where God, I hate the coach so much. Like God, he is the worst
Yes.
kind of person. And that's where this is where I have my problem with second season majorly because what happens to the box of photos? And there's a ton of photos in there, and it would absolutely take down. And apparently, this box of photos goes back years, apparently, according to one of the characters.
There's also a thing. They are every time they're in the court, it seems like that the Baker's lawyer is not the best lawyer. It's not necessarily that he's a weak lawyer. It feels to me that he's a weak lawyer because the plot needs him. Because we need to have that big moment at the end where they say the school wins in the lawsuit.
I don't know. Well, I mean, they always kind of portrayed the legal battle as David versus Goliath, right? Like he's the small time lawyer who everyone accuses of kind of chasing after glory because he thinks he sees, his shot to fame and this is it. And, they're going up against like a titanic law firm with a lot of resources at their disposal. And when it comes to, doing different legal battles, the person who has more money at their disposal and a much better law team at their legal team at their disposal with a lot more resources is probably going to be the team that wins more often than not. But I don't necessarily think he was a weak lawyer, though. I think they portrayed him as a fairly competent lawyer for the most part. It's just that they didn't really have the resources that the school potentially had. So I think, as far as like, him as a character, I think he did it really well.
I don't know, something about the...
But yeah, I can see where you're coming from, yeah.
And like, it didn't feel... Because, I can't really bring up any specifics because it was a while since I watched these episodes. But there are a few times I saw this with my mother again. Like we both saw it together for the first time. I remember there were a few points where I just, why won't he ask this, or why won't he say it like this?
Who's he? What do you mean? Oh, you mean the lawyer, right?
The lawyer.
Yeah. Okay.
So there are a few. Something, I'm no lawyer. I don't claim to be a lawyer. I am the last person you should ever hire as a lawyer. But there are a few points where I'm like, okay. Yeah, thank you that you be a lawyer. I appreciate your honesty. Even. Okay, but, I think the one say about the season, though, is that the ending just...
Well, let's go a little bit in order and talk about the characters once more, because this is definitely, if the first season was Hannah's story, this is the character's story, and this is their perspective of why they did what they did.
I kind of went about the characters already in this season. I will say this: I really, really liked how they handled Justin and Clay's relationship, and that at the end, Clay's parents take Justin in until he'll be 18. I really liked that. That was something that I wasn't expecting, but it was a nice surprise.
It showed that there was, that Justin did find another way, right? Like he thought he was trapped in the situation that he was in, and someone reached out and gave him another opportunity, and that was actually really good and really nice to see. So, it really helped develop his character a lot.
And regarding this, I also, because whenever we really saw first season, Clay would just want to talk to her about the tapes, and she would hate him because of that. But there was something, it was refreshing to see them actually talk together and, try and hang out and be normal with each other. That was also kind of...
Clay and Jessica?
Yeah.
Or Clay and Sherry?
I said Clay and Jessica.
Okay, well, you faded out, so I didn't know.
Oh, damn it. So it was...
We really need to figure out what's up with that.
Yeah, I need to figure... But... I have no idea, to be honest. I have no clue.
Going back, right, talking a little bit about the character development and kind of how we find out more about the characters in season 2 to the first episode from the beginning. The first episode is about Tyler. We learn more about why he took the photos and why he followed around and stalked Hannah, and that was because he was very much kind of the stereotypical nerdy, shy kid who didn't know how to talk to girls, who didn't know exactly what he should or shouldn't do. And
Yeah, and you know something that annoys. I was the nerdy kid who didn't know how to talk to girls, and yeah, I got a no from girls when I ask them out every once in a while. So you know, you don't see me going around filming them and publishing it. No, that's no, no. This is
I
not
get
going to help.
I get how you're upset with
No.
that, but I did like how they kind of gave us his side of the story. Like he's still a, again, terrible person, not defending what he did
Hmm.
before anyone accused me of that. But my point, what I'm trying to get at is that I enjoyed seeing everyone else's take on the story, right? On Hannah's story. I think that was the big draw for me of season 2 was seeing not I think that was one of the draws for me of season 2 to a degree was seeing everyone else's take on her story. And like from,
Hmm.
from episode 1 we get Tyler, episode 2 we go into Courtney, and I kind of, while in the first season where I didn't like her at all, the second season was where I started to say, okay, I like you a little bit now. Like, I don't hate you,
Hmm.
because that girl was absolutely destroyed on the stand. Like,
Yeah.
she gets it rough, and that's where she basically comes out, and she basically kind of is pushed to the point where she comes out on the stand and says, like, no, like, and, she comes out on the stand
Hmm.
stating that she's a lesbian. That's where everyone finds out, okay, she's gay.
Yeah.
That's where she finally
Yeah.
admits it. And that's like,
And that's
wow, that's
rough.
rough. I kind of feel sorry for her in a way. Like,
Hmm.
she has it rough. But it's also, she does that because she feels guilty. And I think she should feel guilty because the lawyer's standing there trying to accuse Hannah of being, again, of being a lesbian, the same thing Courtney accused her of when Hannah wasn't actually a lesbian. It was Courtney.
Yeah. Hmm.
And, she feels guilty about passing around that rumor because all it did was help further the rumor that Hannah was very promiscuous or a slut, according, is what the kids called her and everything. And
Yeah.
Courtney knows that she wasn't, and the lawyer's trying to accuse Hannah of doing the same thing. And because Courtney knows that she's only doing that because of what she said, she eventually, her guilt just gets to her at that point, and she just says, no, she wasn't. I'm the one who kissed Hannah first because I'm the one who's gay. And I
Hmm.
do love the fact that the show does go out of its way to show us, like, her father's reactions and kind of how they say, okay, how do we handle this, and how do we go about doing this, like, what do we tell her, what do we not, what do we say, what do we not say. And it's a really nice
Yeah.
moment to see
That
kind of how
that
they
was a
want
good
to they want
moment.
to still support her, and how she's like, I didn't want to do this because I thought it would really affect you, and they're like, no, we don't care, this is not something that's going to affect us. You're still, our daughter in our eyes, we still love you. Like, that's a really nice thing
And
to see.
then yeah. And then there's something I want to ask. What do you think about Clay posting clips online?
I think, again, like, Clay was upset with everything. And I loved how
Hmm.
Hannah, like, in her head, like, in Clay's head, he's like, would Hannah want me to do this? And, like, Hannah's arguing this against Clay, like, would I want you to do this? Like, this isn't how I wanted things to be done. But I do think Clay doing it, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I
Hmm.
think, you know, he was angry when he made the decision. Would he have made the same decision when he wasn't angry? Probably
Who knows?
not, but I don't blame him for the decision, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
I think
Um,
in the same circumstances, I think I would probably make the same decision, right?
okay.
I think I would be on Clay's side for that one. Another thing I really loved about season 2 was seeing Sky, and the fact that she,
Yeah.
she was definitely depressed. She was definitely dealing with depression, and she definitely, like we saw in the first season that she cut herself. She's still doing that in season 2, and we see that.
Yeah, that's something. That's also something that I wanted. Kind of like with Cher in the first one. I liked her and Clay having a thing, and I'm sad that it's not going anywhere.
Well, I
But
think
in this
they
case,
give a good reason for this one not going anywhere, though, and that's the fact that Clay's still obsessed with Hannah. He still hasn't let go, and she knows this, and
Yeah.
this affects her because she becomes that much more depressed because she thinks she's not good enough. She thinks that, you know, I'm even worse than a girl who's dead. You know, in her mind, that's how she sees her relationship with Clay going, and so
Yeah.
she ends up hurting herself so much that she ends up in the hospital. But she
Yeah, but I
doesn't die.
did.
She doesn't manage. She doesn't kill herself. She ends up again. She ends up in the hospital, and I think the show does something really well here because, and this is where you'll hear a lot of people praise the second season, and this is where I'm going to praise the second season as well because we do see Sky get help. We see Sky get better. Her getting
Yeah,
better
that's
does
that's
mean
the one thing.
she needs to
That's
leave.
the one thing I do. Yeah, that's the one thing I did like. Farewell to one another was that was a very sweet moment.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe in the to this in a bit, but
I don't think they should bring Sky back for the third season. I think it's better that she stays gone for
yeah.
for good
I'm
from
not
the
talking
show.
about. I'm not talking about specific,
If there is a
but
third season,
there is. It's
oh,
confirmed.
we'll get to that in a
We'll
minute
get
then.
to this in. Yeah, we'll get to this in a minute.
But yeah, I enjoyed seeing Sky getting help and the fact that, you know, it's like she full well understands that being with Clay is not going to help her, that she needs to leave. She needs to get away from the area she's living in and just start anew. Like, that was good to see. I think that was a really well done thing from the show. Going on a little bit further, seeing Jessica on the stand was pretty heavy, I think, and was also real done.
Yeah, that was heavy. You know, that's another. I did feel for Jessica her situation and finding out that she was indeed raped, like she was lied to about this, and then once she figures that she was, it haunts her, and that's heavy.
But she's never outs Bryce either, and that leads me into something I want to talk about the second season that I like that I don't that this idea I didn't like. And she meets someone who very much she meets another girl whose name I don't remember, if I'm honest.
I don't remember
I'm sorry.
right now.
Right off the top of my head, I don't remember her name, but she meets this girl and she's very much about how, you know, and she was also raped as well, and she's very much speaks to her about how this is my story, this is your story, it's our choice whether to tell this or not. No one else can make this choice for us. And and you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I agree with that idea. I don't think there's anything wrong with that idea, right? I don't think there's anything bad about it. And it's, you know, my problem though, and this comes to the ending of the second season, this girl is the one who steals the box of Polaroids, the box of photos that basically showed all of the other girls who had been abused or, you know, sexually abused or raped in the clubhouse, essentially, by all the different other, you know, players on the, I guess, baseball team. I assume baseball team. I assume that's where most of the stuff comes from. My problem is she steals them from Clay. And why Clay had them just sitting on his backseat in his car, I have no idea. Like, really, dude? Dumb decision.
Yeah.
But moving on.
There's a back door to, you know, every car.
You have a trunk.
Has a trunk.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Like, it's much harder to break into. Like, they still have to break your window, but much harder to see something and steal it. But just, you know, again, there's one of the photos is of this girl from the clubhouse, and, you know, how she had this photo of her taken. And she says, okay, this is one of the, this is, you know, why I don't talk about it. This had something to do with it. This is, you know, and Jessica goes to her and gives her this photo because, you know, she says, like, this is her story. She should be allowed to have this photo. And she agrees with her and everything of that nature. And this girl has a problem of moving on herself as well. Like, we're shown in the show, right? The show goes out of its way to say she had a boyfriend, she dumped him because he started asking questions that she didn't want to talk about because she hadn't moved on yet, because she hadn't come to terms with it yet herself. And I think that's the show's way of setting up and saying that not talking about it is still a problem. Like, you need to talk about it, and just trying to not talk about it and just forget it and move on may not be the best choice for everyone. And I think, that's what we learned for Jessica, like her not talking about it, her just trying to cover it up and forget about it doesn't help her at all. It doesn't even work for this other girl either. Maybe it does work, but it doesn't do as well as talking about it does. But yeah, I'm going off on a tangent here and going off on a tangent here and getting off topic a little bit. My point is, right?
I get what you mean. Yeah, I get
She
what you
steals
mean.
the photos. She's all about this is my story. She doesn't give any of the photos back to any of the other girls. She burns them. The biggest evidence to take down the coach, who, whether he knows or not, he's complicit in it by the fact that he says, I don't know, I don't care what you do in the clubhouse, and I don't want to know what you do in the clubhouse, but keep it secret. And like that alone, like, oh, this coach needs to be fired because shit like this is still going to happen in the school with him in there. And this is the same coach who, by the way, protects his players by giving them fake pee samples because he knows his players does steroids, and he's like, oh, those steroids, I don't care. Here's some fake pee. We're good now. Like, God, I hate this coach so much as a character.
Yeah, the coach sucks. Let's.
But like, he protects them. Like, you could have taken him down. You could have taken down so many other people who were on this sports team, who did this, because these photos apparently went back years. You could have taken down so many people, and she just decides, yeah, I get to make the decision for all of these girls. None of them get to make the decision for themselves. The big thing that I've talked about so much this entire season, how it's my story, how it's our story. Yeah, no, it's not our story. It's my story. I get to destroy all of this evidence now. It's like, what was the fucking point? Like, God, that pissed me off so much. Like, I hated that character at that point. I liked her and agreed where she was coming from, and agreed with where she was coming from throughout the entire season, and then the show does that, and it's kind of like, what was the point? Like, God, that was annoying. Like, if there's one big letdown of season 2, that's it.
Yeah. I agree completely. But,
Sorry.
No. It's though that if we kind of went over everything, and this episode went on for a lot longer than I expected.
Well, I mean,
which
we're
is
going
good.
over 2 seasons. That's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, I kind of may need to. We may need to, because I do have something I need to do.
Okay, we can wrap it. Sorry.
So no, it's okay. We still have time. So can we just jump to the end of the season?
Yeah. Just one quick thing. Mr. Porter in second season, really enjoyed him. Really enjoyed, like you said, really enjoyed Zach.
And
really enjoyed seeing.
I will quickly say, because it does kind of connect to the end of the season, I enjoyed Tyler actually having friends for a change, but something about the way their friendship ended, if I remember this, felt a bit to me.
Yeah, he came back to the school after like he was going through a lot of shit as well at the time, and he was still being bullied by everyone as well, and it's very much they kind of said, yeah, after everything, we just don't want to be friends with you anymore. We've moved on from you. It's kind of like, wow, that's kind of dickish in a way.
Yeah, really dickish.
So it's like Tyler continues to just get the raw end of the deal. Like, he handles it really well as a, his character, like, handles it fairly well. Like, he says, yeah, I get it. I was messed up. I understand where you're coming from. But it's still kind of dickish in a way. But from all of the people he supposedly makes friends with.
And that leads me...
Well, again, before we get to the end...
Before Tyler, I just want to say this, that the last episode of season 2 is about 10 minutes longer than the rest of the episodes. So keep in mind, this is a longer episode, which means maybe something could have been now, because I think that if this season closed on that point where they play the song Hannah and Clay dance to in the ball we signed the season, and then everyone comes to the middle of the dance floor and hug Clay, and they all dance together. How brilliant of an ending picture that could have been.
Yes, I agree entirely. That's where the season should have ended. Just that song that
Like,
Clay and Hannah first danced to coming on, and everyone just kind of like Tony, Zach, Alex, Jessica, Clay,
yeah, all
I
of
think
them
Courtney as well.
just,
Like all them
yeah,
just coming
Courtney as well,
together.
just perfect,
Like they all just
perfect place
hug
to
around Clay and they all
this.
just stand there, kind of dance, kind of moving to the song a little bit. Like that was just, I agree.
Yeah,
That would have been. That's where they should have ended it at. That would have been perfect.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
and also Clay does that they do host some sort of a memorial for Hannah, and Clay says that he understands now that to move on, and he sees Hannah leave, by going to the line.
hmm
So
and
that's
that's
that like perfect, perfect,
and
perfect
that's
way to
that's
end.
also really important because like throughout the entire second season, Clay's kind of. I kind of disliked Clay in the second season. I don't know about you, but because he's consistently.
There is something like I don't want anything bad to happen to him necessarily, but there are points where it's like, dude, move on.
Well, it's consistently like every time someone gets up on the stand and says something new about Hannah that he didn't know, he consistently goes back to this, well, how can I trust her? How can the tapes be real now? I thought I liked you,
Yeah,
but now I hate
yeah,
you again.
because
It's like every
this I think
episode, it's
season.
almost the exact same thing. And it's kind of, dude, seriously. Oh my
Yeah,
God, with this.
because this is kind of because pretty much about the trust and can you trust your friends. I think this was the basic theme of this season
hmm
in a sense, and this is a real problem. As someone who just recently had to let go of some friends because they started acting like jerks, you do this is something you do go through, but not every time you find out about some shady things about Hannah's past doesn't mean you need to send yourself into a turmoil because of it.
Yeah, it seems
It's not.
it just feels a bit much after a point. Like you have 13 episodes, they're almost all an hour long. It feels a bit much to see Clay kind of go through the exact same thing almost every episode. I get what
Yeah,
they're doing
but
with it and where they're coming from, but it just feels like a bit much, and it feels like they could have.
excuse me.
Oh, you're fine. It just feels like they could have held back a little bit, you know, like
Yeah.
have him go through a different emotion other than just hurt and regret and like can he trust Hannah or not anymore? It's kind of it gets a bit old and a bit annoying very quickly, in my opinion.
Yes. hmm And then comes there's the controversial scene of the season with Tyler being raped with the mob.
hmm
That's which one? It was a very, very, very hard scene
Yeah,
to watch.
that
Like
was
I
graphic.
know,
If the
I
other stuff in
know,
the show was graphic, this was even more so. Like,
yeah, I
jeez.
know what they were trying to get across. I know the point, and in some sense, I'm happy they touched on it. But Jesus,
Again, it's one of those things where I think it's going to depend on who you talk to, but personally, I feel like it was a bit much, and that they could have
no,
not
because
shown what they
about the
as
entire
much as they did.
this in. Let me say this entire season of people saying, "Oh, this is hard to watch," but no, this is actually a good thing to watch, despite how harsh it is. No, people like aside from the show creators, I haven't seen one person defend this part
Mm-mm.
like at all.
I've not looked up too many other people's opinions or reviews or anything of that nature, so I can't say too much. But I think I would agree. Like it was just a bit much. At the very least, it was a bit much. Although
And then
oof.
this scene leads to the end of the. He's about to commence a shooting throughout the school dance everyone's at,
Mm-hmm.
and Clay is talking him out of it. And then as the police comes, Tony takes Tyler away, leaves Clay there with the gun, and that's how we cut.
Mm-hmm.
This pissed me off so much, and it was such an
I
easy
agree.
fix because again, this episode is 10 minutes longer than, so cut the scene with Tyler, cut the ending, bang, done.
I think that's
And
where we
then,
get the, like, they wanted a third season, and this is the way they get that third season, and it's like the show did
yeah,
not
but
need a third season. Maybe it'll do really well, and I hope it does, but I just don't feel like the show needed a third season. I think it
yeah,
could have stopped
because
with two.
I would even argue it did. And again, despite the good things it does do, did we really to see everything that happened in season two? Was it really necessary in the long run?
Some of it maybe, but a lot of it I would probably say it was good to see. I think it all played a part, but I think we could have done without a lot of it. I would agree.
Yeah. So there's this and that, and now they are making a third season. If they knew they're making a third season when they made that cliffhanger ending, then sure. But you know, because imagine if there was a third season. Imagine if this is how the show ended, and there was nothing more after this. Because there are shows who sadly and they run with such bullshit cliffhanger ending. So
Movies as
imagine that.
well.
That would have sucked, but that's because this season ended with Clay letting go of Hannah. So what is going to happen in the third one? He's going to go back and forth on her again. Because if that's the plot, I'm out. Sorry, I'm out.
I assumed, right, that the plot's gonna be dealing with Tyler a lot, which again
Yeah,
I would be fine with. I think there's a pretty good character there to deal with, right?
yeah.
But
There's something to do with.
I
They
don't
send
think
they already a strong start for a third season based on how this one ends. But
I
what
don't
are they going to do? What are they going to do with it? Because you kind of need to have Hannah in there. She is the main character.
well,
So what are you going to do now?
you don't necessarily have to have her in it, but I do agree, like, where is it going to go other than dealing with Tyler? Like, what is the big thing? Like, the entire point of the first season and the second season was, dealing with Hannah, and to an offshoot dealing with, high school life and a lot of the bullying that comes with that, and dealing with this school's, like, really lackluster handling of a lot of stuff. Like the fact that, the school goes out of its way to fire Porter at the end of all this. It's like the one person who probably cared the most. And by the way, number one reason I like Porter is because Porter kicked Justin's mom's boyfriend's ass. And it's like, yes, get him. Like, that was great to see. Like, that dude deserved it. But like,
Indeed.
like, it was really great to see, like, this dude wanted to be better. He wanted to care, right? And the school got rid of that. So maybe the third season will show us, like, how this school just degrades further without people there who really care. But again, what is the hook? What is the hook for the third season going to be? Is it just going to be about how Tyler was going to do what he was going to do? Is Clay going to get in trouble for this? Like, what is their plans here? I just don't know.
Who knows?
And
Well,
I don't know
pretty much.
if I'm
We have
interested.
around a year until we have a year to. So,
That's another issue, right? Like, having that kind of cliffhanger and having it be so long between this cliffhanger and when you finally get answers. It's
yes, that is.
like personally,
Ugh.
I guess if we can just roll right into our ending thoughts, because we've kind of gone over everything with the first and second season
Yeah,
for the most part.
I'll just again. I really the first one. The second one is not the best continuation, but at the same time, it's not the worst scenario.
Personally, I think the second season is better in a lot of ways. I think it definitely drops the ball
Okay.
here and there, but I do think the second season does a lot better with everything it touches on. I think it really, seeing the first season and seeing the second season, I think the second season, I think if you would have never gotten the second season, the first season wouldn't be able to stand as strong. But I think because the second season does what it does and kind of shows us everyone else's side of the story from Hannah's
Mm-hmm.
of Hannah's story. I think the second season is good. I think it adds to the first season a lot, and I think
Yeah.
getting two seasons at the very least was necessary at this point, and I think they complement one another well.
Yeah.
I think the second season, the last 10 minutes, as you said, was completely unnecessary. I think you know you've had the opinion that a lot of the second season was unnecessary. I think pretty much everything from the second season, barring some of the things I've definitely complained about already, was good and added a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the ending of season two should have just ended, like you said, with all of them at the dance, just kind of hugging one another and dancing in that big group. I think
Yeah.
that's where season two should have ended. There should not have been a season three, and I can't.
Yeah. I agree.
And on that basis, if you stop there at that point and don't go any further, I could, even though again this isn't the type of show I generally watch, I could at least recommend the first and second season, as I didn't hate them for the most part. I liked what I watched. It was fairly decent. I don't feel like I wasted my time, so I
Mm-hmm.
could recommend it more or less. But the way season two ends, and knowing that we're going to get a season three, I don't know if I can recommend season three. Again, like, I hope it's
Yeah.
good. I hope it's enjoyable, and I
Like
hope it does really
I'll
well.
say that
But I
I'll
just
say
don't
that
know if
I'll
I
recommend.
personally will go out of my way to watch it.
Mhm. I'll
But
say
go
that
ahead.
I'll recommend the show, especially if you're like me and this kind of stuff. But except the fact that even if you like school shows, and even if you are into it like me, keep in mind that this is a bit tougher to watch, and keep in mind
Mm-hmm.
that you see them. Keep that in mind. And with that said, I think we should probably wrap this up because I kind of need to head out.
Sorry,
And this went, no,
you
no,
should
it's
have
okay.
expected
This
this,
was,
HC.
yeah, I should have expected that, but then again, sometimes my plan isn't all that great. But
But
well, it
overall,
happens. I make mistakes too. Oh,
this is the Outcast's opinion on 13 Reasons Why. We hope you enjoyed.
yeah. We hope you enjoyed it. About 13 Reasons Why. What do you think about the third season? What season do you like most? One or two? You can tell us all about it in the comment section or on our Tumblr Berkcast team. On Twitter, we are Berkcast, capital B, capital C, and you can find all of us on the How to Train Dragon Discord server. So until next Berkcast or Outcast, whatever we do first, I was HC.
And I've been Wolf.
And we will talk to you all next. Take care.
Bye bye.